Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and art fans at Webster and beyond. And here we are at the Potomac Street Studio. Now, last week on our show, we promised you some real live artistic action, and by God, we're going to give you plenty of that right after this important message from our sponsor. This is the fun part here. For this particular technique, you might want to work flat. You might not. You could have all kinds of variations on that. You can work vertically if you want with lots of water, but it's going to run all over the place. But watch this. You put a color down. Right over there. By the way, this is the Grand Bridge, the old Grand Bridge down there by Highway 40, where the Metrolink station is. Let me see, here's a picture of it right here. And just check that on your studio monitors there at home or in class, wherever you happen to be. And that's back in the days of streetcars. And there's a very much of a nostalgia theme in a lot of my stuff. I hate to use the term work, although it does get to be work, especially around rent time, and it's always rent time. And you know what my favorite kind of nostalgia is, ladies and gentlemen, and wrestling fans? Old nostalgia. So anyway, you can have a lot of fun. Put one color down, and then you can dig through all the slop on the table here, and then put another color down, and the water tends to help the colors mix together, or as my high school art teacher used to say, bleed. Watch those colors bleed, boys and girls. And then you can turn it all kinds of different ways. And startling effects right here on film. Look at that. Look at those colors run. Ah, there we go. I'll put some more over here. And this, of course, is the same scene. As you can see, it has a frame around it, including frame. This is one of those yard sale specials. And you know what? I can't remember when was the last time I actually went shopping for any art supplies myself. I have a more or less a barter system with a whole bunch of different people. I have some yard sale going friends who pick up fantastic items like this, including frame, for as low as 50 cents, $1, 2 for $1. You can usually bargain with the people because they're just trying to get rid of all this stuff. They have no idea that old junk is going to be recycled into world-class genius artwork, unbelievable and uncredible as it may seem. So I'm working on these two. I figured I might as well get these done because well, they've already been paid for long ago, and the owners are probably wondering, where is my painting? And sometimes the prepaid ones end up being neglected for a while. But as you can see, this represents the merest fraction of my entire output over the last few years, since 1989, when I began painting. And some of my classics. And there are so many, many millions, perhaps hundreds, that I never even bothered to make prints of. This gives you just a small idea. Look at all these projects in progress, boys and girls. Records, more records. I have eyes, I have Egyptian stuff, Asian stuff. Yet another version of the old Grand Bridge. That's a smaller one. This is on special too, by the way. $20, $30. 40, 50. Maybe more. Just look at that. City scenes. 60s wrestling. Old movie monsters. Now this one here is called The Kiss. Not exactly an original title, but it was a request by this guy in a band. They're putting together a trilogy. I forget if it's a trilogy or if it's a three-part, but it's a set of CDs anyway that their band called Grandpa's Ghost is putting together, and I don't know too much about their music yet. He gave me a sample CD to listen to months ago, and one of these days I'm going to do just that. But I found a picture of a sculpture called The Kiss, as a matter of fact, so I just kind of based these figures on what you see. It's one of those classic famous guys, some French guy from 100 years ago. I forget the name, but I'm sure you'll recognize this movie monster from the immortal 1958 classic, The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, a one-eyed cyclops. Most cyclopses, of course, do have one eye. And more projects in progress. Edgar Allan Poe at open mic night right here This is property of Michael O'Brien, the editor-publisher of Intermission Magazine, the local Greater St. Louis metropolitan area arts, entertainment, and culture magazine. It's free everywhere. And other stuff more, this started out to be one of those Egyptian things, and it just kind of branched out. I think I must have been listening to monster music or something. And this is my box of cereal that I got the other day at the store. Check this one out. Based on an old photo of somebody's granny. As a matter of fact, Jeannie Breeze's granny, the former editor-publisher of Intermission, stepping on the cord. And over here we have, let me try not to knock this monitor over here in our studio. The audience is going wild. Look at that, that's in progress too. More monster wrestling. And right over there, more local St. Louis TV nostalgia. If you remember the Charlotte Peters show on Channel 2 back in the 60s. And if you don't, well, ask somebody old about it. This is a pleasant surprise. Imagine running into you here at Mangia Italiano. That's that fabulous pasta palace I mentioned before our last commercial break. Did I mention my colossal mural in progress? It's entitled Mangia Evolutiano here at Mangia Italiano. Did I mention that address? 3145 South Grand. And I call it Mangia Evolutiano. Basically, it's a history of the universe, particularly the planet Earth, human endeavor, human history, with a big slant on Italian stuff, because after all, this is Mangia Italiano. And right here I'm working on the Italian Renaissance section, different pieces here and there. There's all kinds of stuff that I'm going to be adding in the weeks and months and maybe the years, the millennia to come. Yes, this is my millennia project, one of many. As you saw in the lab, I have literally more than 30 or 40 projects in progress at any given time. Whenever I want a break, I come down to Mangia Italiano. I don't know if I mentioned that address or not. I think it's 3145 South Grand. Right here, I don't remember his name. He was a pope back in the 12 or 1300s, sometime during the Renaissance here at Mangia Italiano. And he was also into politics and all that sort of stuff. And he had a whole bunch of kids too. I don't know if Pope, whatever his name is now, has any kids or not. But, and over here, I can't remember their names, but if you look down here, you see a sort of a fetus type of character, and I believe that's out of the sketchbook of one of those Renaissance guys. I think it's the same guy. Remind me to start reading up on the history of all this stuff that I paint on a daily, hourly basis here at Mangia Italiano and elsewhere. But I believe he did sketches of other scientific things too, like flying machines with bat wings and all that stuff. And you would know his name if you heard it. He's a real famous guy. And what I'm doing right now is applying some more visuals. Visions and visuals here at Mangia Italiano. What's that address again? Influence. Yes, I'm glad you asked that question. There are many and multiple influences that started out at a very young age. I would credit, first of all, comics, movies, TV, magazines like Famous Monsters and Mad. And did I say comics? I just can't emphasize enough the positive influence that comics had on me when I discovered them at roughly about age 6 or 7 back in the very earliest of the early 60s. DC and Marvel Comics, pre-superhero and superhero Marvels. I had the first Fantastic Four issue #1 back in 1961. It's worth billions of dollars now. I had it. I don't have it anymore, but I certainly do have other things. This is reminiscent of some of my trips around town. Speaking of influences that I mentioned, that also combines with the city nostalgia. I would make journeys around town on the bus and walking through old neighborhoods in search of bookstores, secondhand bookstores, junk shops, seeking out back issue comics, Monster and Mad magazines, and these trips were financed by money I found laying around the house in the most unlikely places: my mom's purse, my older brother's pants pocket, and his change bowl up on his dresser. Imagine leaving money laying around places like that. And so I developed an appreciation for public transit. That's why I actually have streetcar memories too, and that's why to this day I enjoy riding buses and the Metrolink, and I still appreciate downtown and the older parts of the city more than ever. But I still have things like this, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, moms and dads, students, fellow Americans, Famous Monsters number 13 from 1961. Look at this. This is number 18 from 1962. Number 12, I love that cover. That's one of my favorites from the Hammer classic, Curse of the Werewolf. One of my all-time favorite covers, Famous Monsters number 22 from 1963. And all that kind of fabulous culture, the monster magazines, movies, movie poster art, bright, colorful movie poster art. Going to the movies was a fabulous experience back in those days, as I'm sure it still is. The old theaters, the visuals, just like in a Hitchcock movie when they show the scene from the point of view of the character, where the scene is gradually getting closer and closer. That's how I felt approaching a movie theater, the marquee, the old architecture, the bricks. And then walking into the theater, it was like going deeper, deeper into worlds within worlds. You go into the lobby, there would be the smell of popcorn, and in some of the neighborhood theaters around here that are long gone, the Ritz and the Shenandoah, there would be the strange characters hanging out in the lobby, the crumbling, stinky restrooms, or there would be the great movie palaces on Grand and Olive in downtown, most of which are long gone too. So all that stuff ties in together, and as you saw earlier, before the commercial break, the theme, subject matter, and some of these paintings encompasses all of those ideas: monsters, movies, comic book sort of stuff, but there's also added elements of ancient civilization stuff. A lot of the movies that were popular back in those days, they had a lot of Hercules, Italian-made strong guy movies, Hercules, Goliath, all those sorts of characters, and they had monsters in them too. And guess what? I saw them at those old movie theaters. So it all just ties in together, it coagulates, it leads together, if you will. Late 60s, end of 1967, so to speak, as it were, if you will. Another influence entered my life totally unexpectedly and by surprise. I was flipping the TV dial around one Saturday night, and I bypassed Larry Welk on Channel 2. Petticoat Junction was on Channel 4. None of that interested me. I landed on Channel 11 and discovered pro wrestling. There was Dick the Bruiser pounding away on some poor young man, clean-cut sort of guy from Indianapolis named Paul Christie. And Dick the Bruiser was a true human monster, all kinds of personality, charisma, all that sort of thing. And I wouldn't have traded places with Paul Christie for all the movie posters and comics and monster magazines in the world. And I fell in love with pro wrestling as it was then. I know nothing about wrestling now, but I contribute world-class genius art to this publication, Wrestling Then and Now, from Flushing, New York. Imagine being from a place with a name like Flushing. But this one here has the first chapter of my memoirs, which I send them a chapter every other year or so. Lots of art. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen, and wrestling fans. Check that out. World Championship stuff here. So, Monster Magazines, my friend up in Illinois publishes Scary Monsters. You can find stuff like this around nowadays. This is the modern incarnation of Famous Monsters in the old tradition. All those are great influences. Look at this. The St. Louis Theater, what a great photo. I'd say probably about 1954. And as you know, the St. Louis Theater is now Powell Symphony Hall. So come on down to South Grand, and I have a whole bunch of stuff on special. You can catch me at Mangia Italiano or CBGB or any number of places any day of the week pretty well, and I'll be more than happy to show you some of this world-class genius, incredible, unbelievable stuff on special every day. South Grand.